Brad Underwood has a busy offseason ahead, but I'm going to tell you why his biggest priority, literally, should be bringing back Tomislav Ivisic.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Locked On Illini. My name is Sunny Verma, your host of Locked On Illini. And just as I say, just because the season is over does not mean that the news is over. There's rumors, there's transfer portal news. Is a player coming in? Is a player leaving this team? Whatever it takes, I'm going to be the middleman here and basically relay information to you guys each and every day. You can always count on about 20 to 30 minutes of Illini content on this here channel each and every day. And so, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and make sure, hit the like button on this here video. I promise it's going to be a good one. And that's because I'm going to today talk about what I think is the biggest priority for Brad Underwood and the coaching staff now that the offseason, unfortunately for us, has officially started. And for me, that's bringing back Tomislav Ivisic. And there's obviously, we had better overall players on last year's team, but from the beginning, I think maybe just a couple weeks in, my everydayers in here who've been with me since day one know that I've been saying that I think Tommy was the MVP of that basketball team last season, only because the skill set that he has, nobody else on Illinois could really duplicate. And, with his size, he's 7'1", about 260 pounds. He's a massive fella to deal with, even for the opposition, whether he was trying to back you down, which granted, I'm going to talk about a little bit later, he needs some help on, but he's also a guy who can stand 7'1" and hit 4 3-pointers in a game like he did in the NCAA tournament. For me, I think everything starts with Tommy. Now, I love Morez Johnson, and I do feel pretty confident that Morez will be returning to next year's roster, but I think a priority even over him would be to bring back Tommy. And it's for a multitude of reasons. Obviously, we've talked about wanting to get old, stay old. At least that was the topic of yesterday's episode, if you were able to watch. And Tommy, technically is going to be older. He's not a traditional freshman, or I guess the NCAA is being weird. Next year is going to be his junior season, which is ridiculous. Of course, it makes zero sense. But he's going to be in his early 20s. He's got the experience. And bringing him back, a guy like Tommy, I was taking a look at potential rosters, and really the only big, I would say, that would be for sure better than Tommy next year would be Trey Kaufman-Renn from Purdue. Bringing back Tommy next year offers you a multitude of bonuses. Now, think about it. I've talked about this on this show. Kylan Boswell. He really stepped it up the last 7-8 games of the season. And it looks like he's ready to settle in as one of the veteran leaders of the team next year, and a guard that we can absolutely count on. What Kylan did struggle with at some points during the season, honestly, most of the season, he did get a lot better with his usage at the end of the year. But when Kylan was your primary point guard, in particular when Kasparis was out, Illinois struggled. Plain and simple. And what bringing back Tommy does is Tommy, I think Jeremy Warner came up with the initial comparison, and I think it was perfect because he's also one of my favorite NBA players, is Tommy is like the college basketball version of Jokic, in the sense where you can give him the ball at the top of the key, and Tommy has vision that would rival and, in my opinion, surpass most of even the other point guards at the college level. That two-man game between Tomislav Ivisic and Will Riley at the end of the season, the chemistry that they had developed together was amazing to watch and a headache for defenses to plan against. And again, so what that means is right now, if Kylan Boswell is your starting point guard next year, I'm okay with it. But quite honestly, I do hope that whoever we bring in for the 2 spot or maybe 3 spot is going to be a guy that you can share those ball handling duties with Kylan, maybe in a 50-50 or 60-40 split, bringing it up the court. But that becomes less of a priority if you bring Tomislav back, because Tommy is in himself a playmaker. He's a guy, as long as you can get it across court, you give it to him at the top of the key, and more often than not, he can run the play for you. In a lot of ways, the comparison I used during the season was he reminded me of Joakim Noah from the early 2000s basketball teams. Now, in the Derrick Rose teams, of course, well, maybe some of you aren't old enough to remember watching them, but Joakim was actually the quarterback on offense, and he was on defense. And Tommy kind of has a similar role. Again, Joakim was never the best player on the Chicago Bulls teams, and I don't know if Tommy's ever going to be the best player on any Illini team that we have championship aspirations for. But that doesn't mean that their value is any less. Tommy's not a great defender, and I'm not going to sit here and say that he is, but he's not a bad defender. And if anything else, he's a very good quarterback of the defense. He's very mouthy. He's very loud. He lets the guys in front of him who can't see what's going on, let them know what's going on and prepare for them. How do I know this? It's because it comes straight out of Brad Underwood's mouth. That Tommy was also one of the biggest, and probably the biggest locker room voices. And it just continued to progress through the year. And again, some of that comes with the fact that, we were one of the youngest teams in all of college basketball last year. And Tommy, despite it being his first year in college basketball, he is a little older. He's played in Europe. He's played against grown men. And so I do think when he stepped into that locker room, he was able to, and he was willing to kind of accept a leadership role. And I do think that Tomislav and Kylan together next year with maybe Trey White can kind of carry the burden of the culture of that locker room on next year's team. Because again, hopefully we're not going to be replacing 10 guys again. It doesn't look like it, at least from the conversations I'm having. But even if you have to bring in 4 or 5 new guys, and of course we have 2 new freshmen coming in, you want someone in that locker room to set the standard. And I just think that bringing back a guy like Tomislav, with a Kylan, it kind of sets you that standard. I was a big fan of the Ivisic and Morez Johnson, the 4 and 5 spot. At times, it was a wonderful lineup, and at times it struggled, which, of course, is the first time that they're playing. But they do balance each other out very well in the sense where Morez plays more like a true 5. He's not really a jump shooter, but he's very physical. He loves beating you up, and he's going to grab every rebound. I always joked around that Morez Johnson Jr. was put on this earth to grab rebounds. And Tomislav, despite his size, is not really the physical type. He is more finesse, but that's why I think this could be a great thing for Tommy to come back. He's going to test the NBA waters, okay? And he's probably going to get an NBA draft grade. And my guess, it would be sometime late in the second round, which I think means that Tommy will return to Illinois next year to work on his deficiencies. Well, the best way to work on your deficiencies is to have an assistant coach who just happens to be one of the best big men developers in the entire country. And that's exactly what Illinois has in Orlando Antigua. Orlando Antigua has developed top 10 NBA draft picks his entire career. And I do think that spending one offseason, not only with Fletch, because of course Fletch is a cheat code, but with Orlando, working on his footwork and more importantly, his game down low. Like a lot of times Illinois did throw the ball into the paint to Tommy, and he did his best, but you can tell he never really looked comfortable. And quite honestly, watching it, I never really looked all that comfortable with him. It's just not his game. But I do think with an offseason that it can be his game. I do think that at some point, he's talented enough that if he can develop a go-to shot down low to complement how already good he is shooting from the 3, I think that Tommy can work his way to the end of the first round. And I think that's always been kind of the plan with both the coaching staff and Tommy when they brought him in here. I think it was a 2-year window. You come in, you play, we'll develop you. And then year 2, it's our job to get you ready for the NBA. And so ultimately, do I think Tommy's going to come back? Yeah, I do. At least from the people I've talked to, for the most part, everything has been agreed upon, but Tomislav owes it to himself. And of course, there's none of us that can blame him to go to these NBA draft camps and, get in the eyes of all these GMs and at least get feedback and figure out what it is he needs to work on. But I do think that he will be coming back to Champaign next season and be able to work on those things with one of the best teachers in the world. And I think I'm very excited that if Tommy Ivisic is coming back, that really could be one of the core pieces to a potential championship team next season. Let me know your guys' thoughts. Ivisic is my number one priority. Do you have a different one? Let me know in the comments. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is a reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with the complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always get to talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. And I appreciate you all coming back again. Just because it's the off season, it doesn't mean we can only talk basketball. It's the off season for football as well. So I'm kind of excited about the opportunity to discuss different various football topics. And I did want to mention that if you have ideas that you want to talk, you want me to discuss on the show, I say this is my show, but it's really just as much your show because there's a lot of content I do each and every day. And sometimes it's easier for me to know what you guys want to watch. And so I'm listing my email address and other ways you can support the channel in the banner below, thesunnyv@icloud.com. And if you want, just leave me a 5-star rating on your favorite audio platform. Leave a question or a comment or something you want to see in that suggestion, and I'll go ahead and put it in a future episode. So today, I kind of wanted to take a preliminary, just very high-level look at Illinois' football schedule next year. Now, Illinois is currently projected by Las Vegas to have a 7.5 win total over and under. And I'll be quite honestly, that makes me incredibly nervous because from the team that I saw last year and the team that's returning so many players from last year's team, you're talking about 16 of the starters, 18 of the starters from the bowl game will be returning to next year's team. Illinois was one of the youngest Power 4 teams in college football last season. And because they're returning so many of these players, they're going to end up being one of the oldest ones next season. And so if Illinois finished with 10 wins last year, the idea is why can't they win, if not just as much, why not more the following year? I'm taking a look at the schedule, and I'll go through the schedule. I want to hear your guys' thoughts. Who you guys think are going to be wins? What do you think are going to be your potential losses? And let's find out, at least at the end of March, what your season prediction is. Again, this is not going to be something super thorough. I've got all summer to dissect each and every game and the strengths and weaknesses of each individual opponent. This is more simply, hey, we've been talking basketball for months now on this channel. And, let's get a little flavor of football just because, quite honestly, our football program might just have the highest ceiling currently right now. And that I don't think, this is not an I don't think. I know I have never been really able to even entertain that idea. Illinois just came off of a bowl win against an SEC team in a primetime bowl, a premier bowl game. And so the eyes are going to be on Illinois. And so let's get started with their schedule. They opened the season Saturday, August 30th against the Western Illinois. And let's be honest, even when Illinois wasn't very good, we never really had to be concerned about losing to these lower level teams. So right off the bat, let's just say that they're 1-0. I'll be honest, I don't like the fact that we're playing at Duke for the second game of the season. It's going to be September 6th at Wallace Wade Stadium. But regardless, if I think this Illinois team is as good as they are, they should come out victorious. Do I like to play on the road against a team from the ACC? No, absolutely not. Do I wish this was another MAC team? Absolutely, I do. Right now, in my opinion, Illinois should focus solely on getting to 6 wins each and every year and just be a consistent bowl team. You know, whether it's 6 wins, 8 wins, 9 wins, let's just establish ourselves with that sort of identity and not risk losing one of our out-of-conference games. Because you know what, as we're going to get to in a second, the Big Ten schedule, it's a gauntlet. Each and every year, there's more money being poured into this conference. And so this is just one of those situations where I prefer Illinois to take the wins where they can get it, which is funny because it's the complete opposite approach I have to basketball. I'm with Brad Underwood in the sense where I like to make the basketball out-of-conference schedule as tough as possible because I do think it builds towards March. In football, forget about it. Give me as many wins as you can give me, and I'll deal with the rest. Speaking of MAC schools, that's who Illinois will be playing in their third week. On September 13th, a Saturday, they'll be playing with the Western Michigan Broncos. And then they open up their season against the Indiana Hoosiers at Bloomington. Okay, and I guess I didn't update my record. At this point, I think Illinois should be 3-0 here, winning all 3 games of their out-of-conference schedule. And this Indiana game, I think I'm intrigued by because I know a lot of people out there are very excited about this Indiana Hoosiers program and what Curt Cignetti has done. I think, if I'm going to be real with you guys, Bret Bielema has this game circled. I think if it wasn't for Indiana and the Hoosiers, that last year Illinois would have been the darling of the NCAA. Illinois would have been discussed the way the Hoosiers were this past season. Now, granted, that only happened because Indiana genuinely is a worse program than what Illinois football is. And so, all credit to Curt, but I want to see him do it again next year. I trust Brett more than I trust Curt Cignetti. So I actually do think that Illinois will win this road game. Again, not to disrespect Indiana, but because I think Brett recognizes that Indiana is going to be one of the rivals in the sense of the eyes of other Big Ten media and national coaches, because we were at a similar level coming in. And now, we are the 2 teams that are generally bottom feeders. Which one is ready to take the next step and be a consistent winner in the Big Ten? I think Bret Bielema is way too smart, and he realizes that it's important to have the leg up on the Hoosiers. So now we're sitting at 4-0. Of course, two wins away from that elusive bowl game. Next, we'll be playing the USC Trojans, who's going to be visiting Champaign. And, USC is about to lock up the number 1 recruiting class in the conference. I think they're competing right up there with the entire country, but those kids are going to be freshmen. And, Lincoln Riley, for as good of a coach as he may or may not be, that's up for discussion. I'm sure we're going to be having that discussion on, either this show or on the Big Ten Huddle, where I join JR every now and then. I don't know if he's solved the Big Ten. It takes a certain style of play to compete in this conference, and there's a certain physicality that you absolutely need to play in this conference. And I think Lincoln, in his most successful years of his career, has played a different way. And so whether he's ultimately able to adjust, I don't know. Now, I'm being honest, I don't see myself being able to predict a victory over USC very often in the future, an Illinois football victory over the USC Trojans victory. But in this particular case, because we have so many of those vets returning from last year's team, and the fact that USC right now, I think, is just kind of in a middle ground, just trying to figure out its own identity. And most importantly, the fact that Illinois has this game at home in Champaign. That's right. I have us at 5-0. And you know what? Let's go ahead and make it at 6-0, because they'll be playing at Purdue in the following matchup. And Purdue is a team that we know struggled last year, but it took overtime for Illinois to defeat them this past year, despite being one of the worst teams, not just in the Big Ten Conference, but nationally, and clearly in the Power Four. They've got Barry Odom now, so the identity has changed. Our good friend Ryan Walters is now gone, but I still think that Purdue's going to be rebuilding. And again, if I'm holding this team in the high regard that I am, this Illinois team, then they need to beat their rivals, because Brad has to understand that Purdue, when they're going, is going to be the type of team that Illinois is going to be constantly competing with for recruits, just because the campuses are so close. So here we sit at, 6-0? Congratulations. It took 6 weeks for the Illini to become bowl eligible. Am I crazy? Let me know in the comments. I'm not saying I'm super confident they're going to be 6-0, but are there any for sure losses that you guys saw in the first 6 games? Because I don't see it. Let me know. Speaking of for sure losses, just found one. That's going to be week 7 against the Ohio State Buckeyes. What me and my wife are going to call the Verma Bowl, because my wife is a Ohio State grad. I am an Illinois grad. So we'll actually be attending this game, and we're going to have potentially our first ever Locked On Illini tailgate. So let me know in the comments if you're a season ticket holder, or if you're, if you know you're going to be at this game. Let me know. I'm going to try to get an official gathering together. But yeah, needless to say, I've not lost my mind. Illinois loses probably pretty handedly against the current national champions. After Ohio State, we get a bye week, and then we get another tough matchup against the Washington Huskies. A Washington Huskies team that is somewhat struggled, but I think that's due to a rebuild. Obviously what their head coach has going over there, they're transitioning. They were just in the college football national championship a couple seasons ago. But I do think that despite how high I think of this Illinois football team, I do think the Washington Huskies still need maybe a year or two to get to their level. But unfortunately, this game is being played in Seattle. And when this game is at Husky Stadium, I just think when you factor in the travel, that this might just be a bad matchup and one of the L's on our schedule. So now we are now at 6-2. We've lost 2 games in a row, and then we get Rutgers at home. It's a game I'm glad that we're playing at home. I never feel good when we're going out to East Rutherford. And obviously, Illinois needed a miracle victory last year. Pat Bryant catch as the game ended to escape Rutgers. But I think this is going to be a really hard-fought match. But right now, with all I've been saying, I don't see Illinois losing games at home unless they are to the national champion. We'll finish off the season right after this. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. And you can stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Me personally, I'm spending way too much money going out to eat. I got 2 kids. I'm tired. It's easy to go get food from the fast food restaurant. I know I got to keep that in check. And with Monarch Money, instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right, let's wrap this season up. So we're currently sitting at 7-2. And again, the Vegas over-under is 7.5. So is Illinois going to be able to squeeze out at least one more victory, and you guys can all collect on the over? Next up is the Maryland Terrapins in Memorial Stadium. And you know what? cash in those tickets because I think this is going to be victory number 8. It's just I trust Illinois, Brett Bielema. Again, I keep repeating myself this episode, and I apologize. But if this team is going to be as veteran focused as it is and talented as it is, I think they take care of business at home against teams that are either at their level or maybe even a little bit below, which is what I think Maryland is going to be. The next matchup I think is going to be a tough one, and that is going to the Wisconsin Badgers. Obviously, that's a team that's kind of in flux. Luke Fickell had to make some changes this past offseason, but I think I'm going to give this victory to Wisconsin. And I just think that right now Luke is, I would say, not necessarily a hot seat, but it's at least someone has turned the knob a little bit, and it's now cooking at a mild. But I think Wisconsin, it's just always a tough place to play at Camp Randall Stadium. And I will say Illinois loses this game, but they cap it off with a victory against the Northwestern Wildcats, a game that we're going to have in Champaign. I think these two programs are just at completely different levels at the moment, and Illinois should be able to take care of business at home. I believe, by my count, that makes us at 9-3. 9-3 I'll absolutely take because, again, that does not include the potential bowl game that Illinois could be playing in and hopefully winning, which would mean that they would be right there at that 10-win mark, just like they had at last season. Let me know your opinion. 9-3. Am I being too optimistic? Am I not being optimistic enough? I think it could go both ways. And again, this is not the last time I'm going to be doing this sort of exercise. I'll go a little bit more in depth with it a little bit later. Again, thank you all so much for tuning into another episode of Locked On Illini. I appreciate all of your support. I'm going to have a mailbag soon. So again, if you want, leave me a comment or a question, whether it's in the comments here. There's a lot of comments, so I may not always see it. Just leave a 5-star review on your favorite audio platform. There's Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I use Pocket Cast, whatever it might be. Leave a 5-star review with a question in it, and I will answer it in a mailback episode I'm going to do hopefully in the next couple of days. Also, you'll be able to see my email right at the bottom of the screen and other ways you can actually support me, at least during this off season. Again, just because it's the off season doesn't mean I'm going to not continue to bring you guys the best content when it comes to Illini football, basketball. Heck, if you guys want to see baseball content, just let me know. I appreciate each and every one of you. And until next time, ILL. Love you guys.